without further ado, we're going to talk a little bit about what does truth teller mean in the spirit of an Ida B. Wells. And so if you haven't been following this amazing award-winning journalist from her time at the AP, Associated Press, to now being an editor, sitting in the room shaping the narrative about women's news, about the intersection of black women and news, is Errin Haines from the 19th.
This turned on. How's everybody doing? Yeah, I'm gonna need another mimosa after Congressman Beatty. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. People fired up. We're gonna follow this, but we'll see how it goes. Yeah, I mean, look, black women, we have to be the ones to tell the truth right now, especially in what feels like a fact-free political environment. We are here to tell the truth because that's what black women do. Black women also vote, and so Glynda, thank you just for everything that you do to help me sound smarter and for us to really tell the truth about who we know are going to be the deciders of this election, and that is women, specifically black women. If we are not talking about black women in the conversation about the future of not only between what happens between now and November, but even beyond that, like what are we even talking about, right? So, yeah, so let's get into it. I mean, yeah, been an interesting 2 weeks, obviously. But where are you as a black woman with 121 days to go until the election? Where are you as a black woman thinking about the next 4 months?
My emotion is widespread, right? There is this, I was sharing, you went to Ghana with the vice president last year, right? So we had an opportunity, she went with the press pool, she's, but I went with the vice president. She had 50 leaders and their guests come with her to her first trip to the continent, and she went to Ghana. And I didn't go with her when she went to Cape Castle, which is the largest slave castle in Ghana. But on my tour, I couldn't catch my breath. When we were standing at the door in return, I couldn't figure it out. And our tour guide talked about that it took us 2.5 hours to drive from Accra to the shore, that our people had to walk that, right? And those who survived that had to sit in the dungeons under the castle, because they talk about a Cape Castle, but it's the dungeons under the Cape Castle that we lived for 3 months, and we had to survive that. And then when we walked through the door return, we were on a voyage for 3 more years, right? I mean, 3 more months at the most. And we had to survive that. So we come from survivors. And so I am Glynda, right? The Good Witch of the North, or Glynda from Wicked. And so it's a movie that my brother and I love. We love the song Over the Rainbow. And in that moment, once I was able to kind of process it, when I drove back with our board chair, Tracy Sturdivant, we couldn't talk. We were in the car like, girl, I can't talk right now. Can't.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot, yeah.
And we said, imagine in this moment, we have to dream beyond the rainbow, because that's what our ancestors did for us, right? My other brother was like, well, we don't know what's on the other side of the rainbow. I was like, that's the whole point. They didn't know where they were walking to. They didn't know what they were doing sitting in a dark dungeon for months. They didn't know what was on the other side of the rainbow when they were on that voyage. And so as much as we're anxious about this moment, fact or fiction, so everything in here is black and white, right? The staff under the leadership of our events manager, Kanetta Piper, talked about black women don't live in the gray, we live in the black and white, right? And because we can live in the black and white, we can dream beyond that rainbow. And so we're going to organize on this side of the rainbow so that our grandchildren, great-grandchildren will be able to reap our benefits in this moment on that other side.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that is so interesting about black women as voters, right, it never can be about any one candidate for us or any one cycle for us. It is about black women, about black women's power, about the issues that black women care about. And so even in the black women that I've talked to this weekend, being at Essence Fest, still so focused on the issues and the stakes of this election, focused on the threats to our democracy, focused on the erosion of rights that are having a direct impact on their daily lives. Is that really kind of the sense that you're getting as well? I mean, yes, black women overwhelmingly supported, the Biden-Harris ticket in 2020. Certainly appears that that's going to be the same situation in 2024. But it's not just about the people that are on that ticket. It is also about them, their power, their communities, their families, et cetera.
I get offended. And I get offended for my mother, right? My mother I'm from Connecticut, lived in a little white community. Nobody came to knock on her door. It was a little Republican pocket in Connecticut. The notion that we vote Democrats, down the Democratic ticket because that's what we do. We're the backbone of the party. We are informed and engaged voters, and we're value voters and issue voters. So this notion that we don't take the time to figure out what it is, we just go as a block. We're a block because we are a values-based block. And so I think we understand that there's so much at stake, that we've seen so many things roll back in such a small time because of one administration. And so I certainly think it is going to be about how do we talk to those who say they're going to stay home, and around the values and votes. Now, I will have to share with you, Errin, that the one thing that you've been has been unapologetically black in very white spaces, right? You've talked about black women's leadership for over 10 years. You have built a brand that is built on truth, but it is also built on, I'm going to bring my lived experience as a black woman, but I'm going to use my pen, or I guess in these things, your keyboard, in a way that will cover issues and cover black women running, winning, and leading in a time that nobody was covering us.
Well, I mean, we're here, and we are we are central to this democracy, right? Even though we may be 6% of the population, like our outsized output, on behalf of each other, but really on behalf, but also in service of this whole country, like we can't ignore that. And so really creating stories that are stories of record, that reflect our lived experience, the experience of people like your mother, like my mother, my grandmother, down to my niece who's almost 30. I can't even believe it. But I mean, just that intergenerational contribution to this country, like we must leave a record for that, so that people that come behind, it's not even just for us now, which matters because obviously people tell us at the 19th that they very much appreciate the representation that they're not seeing in other places. But for people that come later to know that we were here, that we did contribute quite a bit, right? And that we have been contributing. Like that really feels important. It feels like my best and highest work kind of in this moment. And yeah, I mean, to be able to continue to say that what black women does help to determine, it helps to shape, it helps to perfect our union, like that matters. And so to hear from people like you to help, that can really help me to continue to make that argument, because we're not going to stop saying it, right? We're not going to stop putting it out there, even if people, frankly, most of the mostly white, mostly male political journalism class continues to not understand what they are looking at when they see black women leading, right? Black women voting, black women organizing. They don't know what that means. They don't know what that looks like. So if I'm not putting that in perspective and putting that in the conversation about our politics and our democracy, then I don't feel like I'm doing my job, not only as a black woman, but as a journalist. Yeah. So thank you though for saying that. I mean, but it does seem, and I know you share this frustration. I mean, even as we are sitting here kind of discussing what is going to happen between now and November, that black women are not central to that conversation. That's very frustrating to me, because we know that black women are going to be key to whatever happens in the next 4 months. Why do you think it is that black women are being left out, and why does that matter?
I think we're in a moment that, frankly, people didn't think there were going to be, right? So if we go back to 2017, which you wrote a lot on, it was the thank black women because we saved democracy.
Thank black women, listen to black women, follow black women.
So there was been some investments in organizing black women's political leadership, not only as elected leaders, but also as organizational heads. So part of this next conversation is black women. Just so you know, black women are running everything right now, and that threatens them. And so this backlash of seeing someone sitting, literally the ability to walk over to the Oval Office, threatens people. That we have women that are running, who are minority leaders and majority leaders of our state legislatures, who are responsible for billions of dollars in policies. That threatens people. We have black women at literally almost the president of every national political organization right now is a black woman. That threatens people. We went from, one black woman serving as a mayor of a top 100 city. We now have 9. That bothers some people. We went from having just 18 black women serving in Congress. We now have 31. That bothers some people. And even though we celebrate those gains, we still underrepresented, right? In our country's history, there's only been a black woman's voice in the U.S. Senate cumulatively 11 years.
Yeah.
11 years.
Let that sit there for a minute. I mean, in the multi-century history of America, just barely a decade of representation.
And they're threatened because there's a black woman that presides over the U.S. Senate, even though we've only elected 2 and we've had 1 appointed. So there's work to be done. And I would say, we were talking about this yesterday, I'm using political leaders at this moment, but black women are leading in corporate America, black women leading in, in all academia. So when you see that the hate you give, right, that title from Angie Thomas's book, right, which is a juvenile book, is real. Like, the hate you give us, our goal is to push that back and use, like, not only all of the things we tend to lead with our qualifications and our experience, but it's our own essence is the reason why people are gravitated towards our leadership. And we've got to stand firm in that moment, firm in this moment, that we know that we're the leadership that can move this country to higher heights.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're onto something. I mean, it's not just about the excellence, it's also the joyful excellence. I know many of you are probably going to be watching the Olympics this summer. We're going to see more black women being excellent on the global stage, right? That is symbolic. I mean, that does something for people. I wrote a column last summer about the summer of the black woman, between Beyonce, Simone Biles, Coco Gauff, and everything else, and not to mention the vice president really kind of finding her voice on issues around rights and democracy. Like, that felt like a moment, really, for black women, especially headed into this election. I think we may see another summer of the black women this year, heading into November. What do you think, and I guess what would you say to the black women here, the black women that are tuning in, about where we're going, about how you think black women are going to show up, how we are going to factor into this election and continue to factor into our democracy from November and beyond?
Good alley-oop. That is our next conversation, because it's like, what are the things we can do? I mean, we do this work 9 to 5, 9 to 9, and oftentimes we get stuck. Like, what's next? What do we need to do? And so one is to spend some time loving up on each other and reset. That's what we're doing today. And then is, what are we going to commit to? Everybody has a role to play. So this next panel is like, how are we going to use the $1 trillion that we actually organize, right? So we spend a lot of money, but we also influence the people around us and on how they spend their money. How are we going to use our advocacy voice in a way that it is about 365 days a year? Every issue that is important to black women, and we've done some polling, it is under attack. The squeaky wheel in this democracy gets the oil. And so how are we going to organize outside of the voting booth? And obviously the thing that is at most in front of us is how we're organizing our people to vote this cycle. I would also say, at the end of the day, we need more black women in political leadership. That is the work of Higher Heights, right? We train black political leaders, and that is organizers. That is, organizing women who want to organize money around politics. And then we help to support and train black women to run for office with our partner at Emerge, another organization run by black women, Ashanti Golar, in her pretty green. And so I would say, what's the charge as relates to mis and disinformation? What do we need to do to ensure that we have the right information, that we're not telling any lies, but we're giving the truth in a way that we can speak to our neighbors, that we can sit in our kitchen, our kitchen tables, about the importance of this moment.
That's such an important note to end on, Glynda, because we know that black women are the trusted messengers of our community. And that is frankly why we are such a target of mis and disinformation. We know that we are disproportionately on social media, right? And so that is where so many of us are getting our news and information. And thank God that we have folks more interested in politics. They're politically engaged. They want the information, but all the information that they're getting out there is not good. And so if that is somebody that you know in your life, in your community, I just encourage you. I mean, obviously, I'm out here as a truth teller, writing stories that are accurate, that are factual, but that's not always the stories that the people in our lives are getting. And so when we do see that we have people in our lives that are sharing stories that, we know are ridiculous, patience with those folks, sharing with them stories that are accurate so they actually, just to say, you know what, I don't know where you saw this, but actually that's not true, and so please don't keep sharing that. This is maybe the way to go. But yes, the black women in people's lives are the ones that can help them kind of get away from the mis and disinformation that is intentionally being targeted at our communities and specifically at black women. So thank you for saying that, and thank you for everything that you are doing, Glynda. I look forward to the rest of this conversation, and I know we'll be in touch many more times between now and November. So thank you.
Thank you to Errin Haines from the 19th.